Watch a modern commercial jet. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of engineered metal tearing through a high-altitude cloud bank in an effortless glide. Compare that to January 1st, 1914. Pilot Tony Janis flew the inaugural route for the St. Petersburg-Tampa Airboat Line, using a small wooden Benoist airboat that barely cleared the water. The economics of this milestone were highly precarious. There was room for exactly one passenger, who paid $400 at auction for the seat. The operation only ran because local businessmen pooled a $1,200 subsidy to cover the early losses. The airline's founder, Percy Fansler, declared that what was impossible yesterday was an accomplishment today. But scaling a two-person seaplane into a viable industry presented a massive logistical nightmare. The sky was heavily fragmented. Early commercial aviation was constrained by archaic, localized regulations, originally designed for 19th-century railway lines and maritime shipping. Turning a localized novelty into a functioning global network meant that those geographic borders had to be completely ignored, and an entirely new regulatory architecture had to be written. Fast forward to the 1950s, and 70 million passengers a year were crossing oceans at speeds exceeding 300 miles per hour. The catalyst for this rapid expansion was the establishment of international standard-setting bodies, specifically the International Air Transport Association and the International Civil Aviation Organization. These groups systematically dismantled the old caravan and shipping laws, replacing them with a unified common code for airspace. Agreeing on these global rules transitioned flight from a daredevil stunt into a scalable, reliable infrastructure. First, they implemented universal ticketing and airway bills. This allowed passengers and commercial freight to transfer seamlessly across competing airlines and national borders without friction. Second, they established universal maintenance and safety codes. An aircraft built in one nation could now be safely inspected and repaired by ground crews in another, following identical protocols. This standardization required an extensive physical network. Out in the North Atlantic, 21 international weather ships continuously collected atmospheric data and fed standardized reports directly to cockpits. As the skies became more crowded, they rolled out a universal air traffic control standard, allowing central plotting rooms to safely organize hundreds of overlapping flight paths. By laying down this invisible, standardized architecture, they effectively erased physical geography. Distance was conquered by international consensus. By the late 20th century, the objective for airlines shifted from building this global system to dominating it. Singapore Airlines serves as the ultimate case study. It began as a regional Malayan carrier in 1947, before splitting into an independent entity in 1972. Operating out of a tiny island state, the newly independent airline faced a severe handicap. They had absolutely zero domestic market to rely on for baseline revenue. To survive, Singapore Airlines had to depend entirely on the frictionless international network established decades earlier by IATA and ICAO. This animated bar chart illustrates their aggressive financial strategy to dominate that network. In 1978, Singapore Airlines committed to a $2.1 billion deal with Boeing, dwarfing standard fleet investments of the 1970s. They continued to scale with a $4.34 billion Airbus deal in 1992. These massive capital injections were used to outfit planes with new generation cabins, positioning the brand as a premium luxury product. Singapore Airlines successfully scaled into a global titan because they recognized the sky as a single, borderless commercial zone and built a fleet strictly to capture international traffic. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic provided the ultimate stress test, bringing this multi-billion-dollar global network to a sudden, devastating halt. This line chart tracks the financial devastation on Singapore Airlines. Between late 2019 and May 2020, you can see a sharp cliff drop as their valuation fell from $8 billion down to $4.5 billion, accompanied by a $3.2 billion net loss. To survive the freeze, a state-owned fund called Temasek Holdings stepped in with a $13 billion bailout, providing the massive cash injection needed to stabilize the company. That $13 billion rescue served the exact same function as the $1,200 local subsidy that got Tony Janis's wooden airboat off the water in 1914. The scale has grown from a single ticket to tens of millions of passengers. Yet, conquering the sky requires an unbreakable partnership between immense financial risk-taking and unified global cooperation.